In our religion, it is not permissible for any non-Muslim to stay in Arabia.
ကုန်းသွယ်ဆန္ဒညီနောင်ထာဝါနှစ်ခုတည်းကတောင်ဘက်တာဝါကပြိုကျခဲ့ပြီးလူအယောက်1000လောက်သေဆုံးခဲ့ရပါတယ်။သိမကြခင်မှာပဲဒုတိယတာဝါကလည်းပြိုကျခဲ့ပြီးတော့နောက်တဲ့လူအယောက်1600လောက်ကအသက်ဆုံးရှုံးခဲ့ရပါတယ်။စုစုပေါင်းဒီ9/11ဖြစ်ရတဲ့အကြောင်းမို့လို့လူအယောက်3000လောက်အသက်ဆုံးရှုံးခဲ့ရပြီးတော့မှဒီတဲကအယောက်200လောက်ကအဆောင်အုံနဲ့မီးလောင်ကျွမ်းမှုကြောင့်အဆောင်တွေပေါ်ကနေကြောက်အားလန့်ခုန်ချရမှာသေဆုံးခဲ့ရတာဖြစ်ပါတယ်
9/11 right Osman bin Laden က attack လုပ်တယ်ဆိုပြီးတော့ Israel America ကိုလိန်ထားတယ် it's an inside job right အဲ့တော့9/11မှာဆိုရင်တကယ်တမ်း YouTube မှာကြည့်လိုက်တစ် floor ချင်းစီကဒုံဆိုပြီးကွဲတဲ့တကယ်တမ်း zoom in လုပ်ထားတဲ့ဟာရှိတယ် right ပြီးတော့ထားပါတော့လေမြန်တကယ်ခါဖြတ်တိုက်ရင်ဒီမှာ engineer ရှိလိမ့်မယ် architect တွေရှိလိမ့်မယ်ခါဖြတ်တိုက်ရင်တကယ်တမ်းဒီလိုမျိုးကြီးအောက်ကနေပြိုကျ foundation ကနေပြိုကျရဲဆိုတာဒါဉာဏ်ရှိတဲ့လူတွေ calculation ရှိတဲ့လူတွေနားလဲတယ်ဒီလိုမျိုးပြိုကျရဲဆိုတာဒါ man made ဖြိုချတဲ့ဟာ right ပြီးတော့အဲ့ဒီမှာလဲဂျူးတွေတယောက်မှမတန်ဘူး
ယနေ့အချိန်ဒီထွက်ရှိထားခဲ့တဲ့သတင်းအချက်အလက်တွေထဲမှာဒီလိုမျိုးလေရင်ကိုပြန်ပေးဆွဲခဲ့တဲ့လူ19ယောက်က Saudi Arabia, Egypt နဲ့ UAE နိုင်ငံတွေကမွတ်စလင်လူမျိုးတွေဖြစ်ကြပါတယ်
Even a fool will know that this was an inside job.
A lot has changed since September 11th, 2001. As a Muslim child, the rest of my future as a Muslim individual became very complicated on that day. Because some people had just reminded the world that they have a reason to be afraid of a religious system that they had previously known as an invading force, or at least their ancestors knew it as such. I was only a preteen when 9/11 happened. My mother was watching the news and she saw the breaking news. I joined her, and as we were standing there, the second plane just flew into the building. I don't even want to explain the sadness and the fear I felt, because I think it's not comparable to Americans, to New Yorkers, or people who were involved, people who lost family and friends in that attack. Today, when it's the anniversary of 9/11 again, we just see people take the opportunity to express their sadness publicly, to show everyone how sad they are, how much they feel, how they don't want to have something like that happen again, how it was a tragedy, never forget. But what has anyone really learned from it? One thing we didn't learn is to openly talk about the ideology behind 9/11, about this religion, and what adherents of this religion in the world believe, what they think of 9/11. The moment this attack happened, my mother told me that they will probably blame this on Muslims, and that it was definitely not Muslims, that Jews were behind it, that America was behind it. And that's funny because I heard the same thing from virtually every Muslim outside after that day. The Jews did it, Israel did it, America's own government did it. That's really ironic because on one side, I was constantly told that this was not my religion. It was not the fault of my religion. It wasn't the fault of my religious group. It shouldn't be my problem. At the same time, I was taught nothing but fear, again, and hate. I was told that this was a big conspiracy, that they were trying to blame the Muslims because they want to kill Muslims again, that there were no Jews in the building on that day, which clearly shows that the Jews are behind this, just like they are behind every bad thing that happens to Muslims. I was a Muslim child in Germany. The public expression of Muslims was usually to be quiet about this, to remain silent, not to say anything, or to say, well, what about all the innocent Muslims that die around the world? Can we talk about them now? Why do we talk about this? On the inside, of course, where there are no non-Muslims, there were a lot of celebrations going on. They deserve it. More should have died. And of course, the same people who celebrated the idea of nearly 3,000 people dying in such a terrifying attack were suddenly quite sad about it outside, or indifferent. Thanks for being hypocrites, dear Muslims around me. Thanks for being hypocrites, dear Muslims everywhere around the world. Back then, later, and now. Nearly 2 decades after the events. So many people have been hypocrites about this, because it publicly represents Islam. Their behavior publicly represents Islam. And they have to act in a nice, appropriate way in order not to tarnish Islam's nice reputation. What a great reputation. This hypocrisy developed to such levels that the same Muslims who explain that 9/11 was the Americans' own fault also go out claiming that Terrorism had nothing to do with Islam and Muslims because terrorists who kill innocent people were not Muslims and were not part of Islam. Which is funny because that's not really how Islam works. The idea that killing regular people was allowed in Islam or was endorsed in Islam is actually an idea that is very old, that is centuries old. It is almost a millennium old. The thing is, until recent times, it was only a discussion. And the disagreement was mostly about killing innocent Muslims, not killing innocent people. There were those who justified the killing of innocent Muslims. Then there were those who disagreed with them, but justified war against other Muslims. Then there were those who rejected both ideas. But although there was this disagreement, which was by no means a small disagreement, the different parts of this discussion still saw each other as a part of Islam. It is only today, now that Islam's reputation matters in the world because Islam is weak and Islam's image must be saved, that people go out of their way claiming that those who killed innocent people were not part of Islam and were not Muslims. That's a nice thought, but not only does it not work with Islam, it is wrong. This is also a giant hypocrisy, because many Muslims don't really think that way. It is also very lazy, because Muslims who claim that this was the case try to get rid of the responsibility. People should admit that Islam can be dangerous. No matter if you believe in Islam or not, this is not something hard to admit, that Islam can be dangerous. You can still be a Muslim and say that. This doesn't mean your religion is wrong. Your religion is evil and violent. Of course, we have our disagreements. This just means that your religion can easily be made more aggressive by certain people, by certain adherents, who then commit violence in the name of it. Which, again, doesn't have to mean for you that your religion is entirely wrong. This is just something very basic to admit. I don't really know where I'm going with all of this. But just to summarize a few points. Many Muslim opinions are very problematic about this attack and always have been. Just look at some polls about what people believe regarding 9/11. Among so many Muslims around the world, not only in the Islamic world, also in general around the world, those who don't believe or don't know that Al-Qaeda was behind this attack are the majority. And you don't really have to guess to find out who they think was behind this attack. Because of partisan thinking, because of the them and us mentality, which leads to events like 9/11, because of misinformation, because of tribalism. Another thing is that we can't just go on claiming that terrorism had nothing to do with Islam, that terrorists were not Muslims, that the 9/11 attackers had nothing to do with Islam. It is Islamic terrorism. Admitting that is the first step to talking about a solution. Not only Muslims should admit that, the media, which tries to tell us too that Islam was misunderstood, should also admit that. Anyways, I hope this was clear. I understand that tragic and horrifying events like these serve as some kind of cuddle party for people to come together and to be sad about. And I might sound a little bit insensitive, but instead we should think about what could be learned from 9/11, instead of just treating it like a tragedy that we just need to remember and never forget, just so we do nothing about it.
Well, what do we do with that information?
What do you do with any information? You just stuff it deep down inside and keep an eye on it.
You keep it.
I will be back very soon. Have a great day and stay away from Islam.
You have declared a jihad against the United States. Can you tell us why?
The US government has committed acts that are extremely unjust, hideous, and criminal through its support of the Israeli occupation of Palestine. And we believe the US is directly responsible for those killed in Palestine, Lebanon, and Iraq. Due to its subordination to the Jews, the arrogance of the United States regime has reached the point that they occupied Arabia, the holiest place of the Muslims, who are more than 1 billion people in the world today. For this and other acts of aggression and injustice, we have declared jihad against the US.
Is the jihad directed against the US government or United States troops in Arabia? What about US civilians in Arabia or the people of the United States?
We have focused our declaration of jihad on striking at the US soldiers inside Arabia, the country of the two holy places, Mecca and Medina. In our religion, it is not permissible for any non-Muslim to stay in Arabia. Therefore, even though American civilians are not targeted in our plan, they must leave. We do not guarantee their safety.